Richard nodded. Agreed. We start digging bank records, offshore accounts, anything that might give us a clue. Suddenly, Richard's phone buzzed. A private number. He hesitated before answering. Hello. A distorted voice came through the line. You think you've won? Think again. Richard's blood ran cold. Who is this? A low chuckle. You took down Victor, but you forgot one thing: he wasn't working alone. The line went dead. Richard slowly lowered the phone, his heart pounding. He looked at the others. We have a bigger problem. Isabella narrowed her eyes. Then we better be ready. Max let out a low growl, as if sensing the storm that was about to come. The tension in the room thickened as Richard placed his phone down. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel crossed his arms. If Victor wasn't working alone, then who else is behind this? James leaned forward. We need to assume that whoever they are, they're powerful, maybe even more dangerous than Victor himself. Isabella tapped her fingers on the table. Victor's business empire wasn't built overnight. He had investors, silent partners, people who benefited from his corruption. If he goes down, they go down with him. Richard sighed, running a hand through his hair. That means they'll do anything to stop us from digging deeper. At that moment, Max started barking wildly at the window. Daniel rushed over and pulled back the curtain. His eyes widened. Guys? We have a problem. Outside, parked across the street, were 3 black SUVs with tinted windows. No one stepped out, but it was clear they were being watched. James cursed under his breath. They're already making their move. Richard clenched his fists. We're not going to sit back and wait for them to strike first. If they want a war, we'll give them one. Isabella smirked. Now that's the Richard Lawson I remember. Daniel patted Max's head. Looks like we're diving back into the fire, buddy. Max wagged his tail, ready for whatever came next. The black SUVs remained parked outside, their engines idling like silent threats. Richard, Isabella, Daniel, and James stood in tense silence, watching from the window. We can't stay here, James muttered. If they're watching us, they're planning something. Richard exhaled sharply. Agreed. We need to move fast. Isabella, do you still have any contacts who can help us? She nodded. A few. People who used to work with Victor but turned against him. They might have intel on who his real partners are. Daniel checked his phone. And I might know where to start. While you guys were talking, I traced a suspicious bank transaction linked to Victor, money being funneled offshore. Guess where it's leading? James raised an eyebrow. Where? Daniel smirked. Switzerland. Classic. Richard clenched his jaw. Then, that's our next step. We go to Switzerland and find out who's pulling the strings. Just then, Max let out a low growl. The group turned just in time to see one of the SUV's doors open. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out, flanked by 2 bodyguards. He adjusted his cufflinks and smirked up at the house. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. He placed it on the hood of the car, gave a mock salute toward the house, and got back inside. Moments later, the SUVs pulled away, vanishing into the night. Richard, heart pounding, rushed outside and grabbed the envelope. He tore it open. Inside was a single note. You're playing a dangerous game, Lawson. Switzerland won't save you. We'll be waiting. Richard looked up at his friends. Looks like they already know what we're planning. Isabella smirked. Then let's make sure they regret it. Despite the victory, something gnawed at him. He turned to Isabella, who sat across from him, sipping her coffee. Victor was too calm when they arrested him. He said, "This isn't over." What did he mean? She sighed. Men like him don't go down that easily. He still has connections, Richard. People who would do anything for him. Daniel, who had just entered the room with Max at his side, frowned. So, what do we do? Sit around and wait for his next move. James, leaning against the wall, spoke up. We need to find out if Victor left behind any backup plans. He had too much power to not have an escape route. Sitting in his office, he scrolled through news reports about the scandal. The headlines were everywhere. Billionaire businessman exposes corruption in his own company. The fall of Victor Langley, a story of betrayal and justice. At that moment, Max suddenly lunged forward, teeth bared. He clamped down on Victor's wrist, forcing him to drop the gun with a cry of pain.
Now!
Isabella shouted. Daniel tackled Victor to the ground, pinning him down. Richard snatched up the fallen gun and pointed it at Victor's head. It's over. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The remaining intruders, realizing they were outmatched, fled into the night. Moments later, officers stormed the mansion, arresting Victor and his men. As they were led away in handcuffs, Victor shot Richard a venomous glare. This isn't over. Richard exhaled, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. He looked down at Max, who wagged his tail, still standing guard. Daniel patted Max's head. Looks like this dog just saved all of us. Richard turned to Isabella. What happens now? She smiled for the first time.
Now?
You expose the truth. And maybe we can finally put the past behind us. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, Richard knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning of a new chapter. And, thanks to Max, they had a second chance at justice. A week had passed since Victor Langley's arrest, but Richard couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't truly over. And this time, there was no running. Bullets tore through the air as Richard, Daniel, and Isabella ducked behind the furniture. Max barked furiously, his body tense, as if sensing the danger. James fired back, taking down one of the masked intruders. We need to get out of here, Daniel shouted over the gunfire. Richard glanced at Isabella. Is there another copy of that evidence? She shook her head. This USB is the only one left. If we lose it, we lose everything. Just then, one of the masked men tossed a smoke grenade into the room. Thick, gray smoke filled the air, making it hard to see. Coughing, Richard grabbed Max and motioned toward the back door. Follow me. Through the haze, they stumbled toward the exit. Just as they reached the door, a shadowy figure blocked their path. It was Victor Langley himself. Going somewhere, he sneered, a gun in his hand. His icy stare sent chills down Richard's spine. You did all this just to cover up your crimes? Richard said, tightening his grip on Max. Victor smirked. You still don't get it, do you? It's not just about money. It's about power. And I can't let you ruin everything I built. James aimed his gun at Victor. Drop the weapon, Langley. But Victor only chuckled. You don't have the guts to pull the trigger. Barked, ready for the next battle. The room fell into silence as Richard read the note again. The message was clear, they Max weren't just being watched. Their enemies were always one step ahead. Daniel exhaled. Well, that's comforting. They basically just told us they'll be waiting for us in Switzerland. James smirked. Which means we're on the right track. Isabella crossed her arms. If we go in blind, we're walking into a trap. We need a plan. Richard nodded. We leave tonight. No one else can K. But what about Max? At the sound of his name, Max wagged his tail, oblivious to the danger ahead. Richard glanced at his loyal companion. He comes with us. I'm not leaving him behind. Isabella smirked. Good. We'll need all the help we can get. That night, they packed their bags, prepared their fake passports, and left the mansion separately. As Richard stepped onto his private jet, Max curled up at his feet. Just as the plane was about to take off, Richard's phone buzzed. A new message. Safe travels, Lawson. See you soon. Richard's grip tightened on his phone. This wasn't just a fight for justice anymore. It was war. As the jet soared through the night sky, Richard stared out the window, deep in thought. The message had rattled him. Their enemies weren't just watching, they were waiting. Max rested at his feet, his ears twitching occasionally, as if sensing the tension. Across from him, Isabella tapped away on her laptop, while Daniel scrolled through encrypted messages on his phone. James poured himself a drink. We need to assume they already know we're coming. That means they'll try to control the narrative before we can expose them. Richard nodded. Then we need leverage. Something they don't know we have. Isabella looked up. The USB drive has enough to bring Victor down, but if his partners are still in the shadows, we need something bigger. We need to find the real mastermind. Daniel smirked. Well, we do have one lead, the offshore account in Switzerland. If we crack that, we might find out who's pulling the strings. Richard exhaled. Then, that's our priority. We land in Geneva, find a secure location, and track down that account holder. Suddenly, Max sat up, ears alert. A second later, the pilot's voice came over the speaker. Mr. Lawson, we have a problem. Air traffic control says our flight plan has been altered. They're ordering us to land in a private airstrip outside Zurich under military escort. Isabella's eyes widened. That's not normal. James stood up, reaching for his gun. It's a setup. Daniel cursed. They're forcing us into their hands. Richard clenched his jaw. Then we don't land. Pilot, keep us in the air. Find another route. The Pilo. Outside the window, 2 fighter jets appeared, flanking them on either side. A voice crackled over the radio. Richard Lawson, you are ordered to land immediately. If you do not comply, we will shoot you down. Max growled, sensing the danger. Richard's heart pounded. They had walked right into the trap. The cabin filled with tense silence as the fighter jets maintained their aggressive formation. Richard exchanged glances with Isabella, James, and Daniel. None of them had expected this level of force. James grabbed the radio headset from the pilot. Who's giving the orders? This is a private flight. You have no jurisdiction over us. A cold, authoritative voice responded. This is not a negotiation. Land immediately, or you'll be taken down. Daniel swore under his breath. They're not bluffing, are they? Richard tightened his grip on the armrest. No, they're not. But if we land, we're as good as dead. Isabella's fingers flew across her laptop. Give me a second. I'm hacking into Swiss air control. If I can scramble their systems, they'll lose track of our flight for a few minutes. James checked his gun. We might not have a few minutes. Max let out a low growl, his eyes locked on the window, as if sensing the incoming danger. The pilot's voice was shaky. Sir, we're running out of options. I need to make a decision now. Richard took a deep breath. We're not landing. Find a way out. The pilot nodded and immediately pulled the jet into an evasive maneuver. The plane tilted sharply, engines roaring as they veered away from the designated landing strip. The radio crackled again. You've made the wrong choice, Lawson. You won't escape. A second later, one of the fighter jets fired a warning shot, just missing the tail of their plane. Daniel gripped the seat. Oh, hell no. They're actually shooting at us. Isabella suddenly sat up. I did it. Air traffic control is down for 60 seconds. They won't be able to track us. Richard turned to the pilot. Now's our chance. Get us out of here, whatever it takes. The jet banked hard, diving into the clouds just as another shot fired past them. Alarms blared inside the cockpit, but the maneuver worked. The fighter jets hesitated, momentarily losing visual contact. James clenched his fists. We're not safe yet. Where do we go? Isabella typed furiously. There's a private airfield near the Italian border. If we get there undetected, we can disappear before they find us again. Richard nodded. Do it. We're not dying today. The jet raced towards safety, but one thing was clear. Whoever was after them wasn't playing games. This wasn't just about Victor anymore. This was bigger. And they were only just beginning to understand the true enemy they were up against. The jet sliced through the clouds, engines roaring as the pilot pushed it to its limits. Behind them, the fighter jets hesitated, momentarily thrown off by Isabella's hack. We've got maybe 60 seconds before they recalibrate, she warned, fingers flying across her keyboard. Richard turned to the pilot at this speed. Less than 5 minutes, the pilot replied. But if they re-engage before then, we're in trouble. James reloaded his weapon, even though it was useless against fighter jets. If they catch us, we're dead either way. I'd rather go down fighting. Daniel checked the radar. Good news. One of the jets peeled off. Bad news. The other one just locked onto us. An alarm blared inside the cockpit. The pilot cursed. They've armed a missile. Richard's pulse pounded. Countermeasures? Already deployed. But if they fire, there's no guarantee we'll dodge it. Max barked, sensing the danger. Then, just as the missile warning light flashed red, the fighter jet abruptly disengaged. It veered away, retreating into the distance. "What the hell?" Daniel muttered. James narrowed his eyes. "They don't just call off an attack unless—" Richard's phone buzzed. A new message. "This was your only warning. Land in Italy. We need to talk." Isabella read it over his shoulder. "Looks like whoever's behind this doesn't want us dead yet." Richard exhaled, his mind racing.
"Fine.
We play their game for now." The pilot adjusted course, descending toward the private airfield in Italy. But one thing was certain. Whoever they were about to meet knew everything. And they were waiting. The jet touched down on a secluded runway in northern Italy. The moment the wheels hit the tarmac, Richard's instincts screamed trap. The airstrip was empty. Too empty. No personnel, no vehicles, just eerie silence under the moonlit sky. Max sat alert, ears perked. Isabella shut her laptop. "I don't like this. They forced us here, and now they're just waiting." James checked his gun. "Well, let's not keep them waiting then." Daniel peered out the window.
There.
Black sedan, approaching from the south. A single car rolled toward them, its headlights cutting through the darkness. It stopped a few meters away. The back door opened. A man stepped out, his silhouette tall and composed. Richard's breath caught. He knew that face. Isabella tensed.
"No.
It can't be." Daniel looked between them. "Who the hell is that?" Richard clenched his fists. "Alexander Monroe." James frowned. "As in the billionaire? The one who disappeared years ago." Monroe smirked. "You look surprised, Richard. Let's talk." Max growled low. But they had no choice. Richard stepped onto the tarmac, his pulse steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Alexander Monroe, once a respected businessman, presumed dead after vanishing years ago, was now standing right in front of him. Isabella stayed close, her eyes filled with suspicion. James and Daniel flanked Richard, weapons subtly at the ready. Max stayed low, muscles tense. Monroe smirked, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored suit. "Still as cautious as ever, Richard." "That's good. Caution keeps a man alive." Richard folded his arms. "Cut the theatrics, Monroe. You forced us to land here. What do you want?" Monroe took a slow step forward. "I want to help you." Daniel scoffed. "Oh yeah? Because having fighter jets chase us out of the sky really screamed help." Monroe chuckled. "That wasn't me. That was the people who want you dead. I'm the reason you're still breathing." James narrowed his eyes. "Why should we believe you?" Monroe's expression darkened. "Because the people after you? They're bigger than Victor Langley. They're the ones who made him. And now that you've exposed him, they need a new scapegoat." Richard's stomach tightened. "You mean us?" Monroe nodded.
"Yes.
"But I have something they fear even more than you." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black drive. "This contains every transaction, every deal, every dirty secret they've buried. Names, accounts, locations. Enough to burn them all down." Isabella eyed the drive. "Why give it to us?" Monroe sighed. "Because I've been in hiding for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. But I need someone to finish what I started." He locked eyes with Richard. "And I think you're that man." Silence hung in the air. Richard exhaled. "If we take this, they'll come after us harder than ever." Monroe nodded.
"Yes.
"But for the first time, you'll have the power to fight back." Max let out a low growl. Richard looked down at his loyal companion, then back at Monroe. He reached out and took the drive. The war had just begun. Richard gripped the black drive, its weight far heavier than its size suggested. Inside it lay the power to destroy an empire, or sign their death warrants. Monroe watched him carefully. "You don't have much time. The moment they realize you have this, they'll come for you." James scoffed. "They were already trying to kill us before. What's different now?" Monroe smirked. "Now you're a real threat." Daniel eyed Monroe warily. "Why not just release it yourself? Why involve us?" Monroe sighed. Because I'm a ghost. A dead man can't fight this war. But you, he pointed at Richard. You've already made waves. You exposed Langley. People are watching. That gives you an edge for now. Isabella crossed her arms. So, what's our next move? Monroe pulled out a phone and tossed it to Richard. That drive is encrypted. You'll need someone who can crack it. There's only one person I trust with that job. Her name's Eva Sinclair. She's in Berlin. Richard frowned. And we just waltz into Berlin with this thing? They'll be waiting for us. Monroe smirked. They're waiting everywhere. But if you want to win, you'll go to her. A sudden crack echoed through the air. A gunshot. Down. James shouted. Bullets rained from the darkness. The sedan Monroe arrived and exploded in flames, sending shockwaves across the tarmac. Max barked furiously as Richard and the others dove for cover. Damn it. They found us. Daniel cursed, firing back blindly. Monroe grabbed Richard's shoulder. Go. I'll cover you. Not without you, Richard yelled. Monroe shook his head, a grim smile on his face. I've been running long enough. It's your turn now. Before Richard could argue, Monroe pulled out a gun and stepped into the open, unleashing a hail of bullets at their unseen attackers. Richard clenched his jaw. He wanted to stay, to fight. But Max barked and nudged him, as if telling him to move. Run, Monroe shouted. With a final glance, Richard turned and sprinted toward the waiting car. Isabella floored the gas, tires screeching as bullets slammed into the pavement behind them. Through the rearview mirror, Richard saw Monroe standing tall, firing until the flames consumed him. James gritted his teeth. Berlin it is. Richard clutched the drive. Monroe had sacrificed himself for this. Now it was up to them to finish it. The car sped through the winding roads of northern Italy, engines roaring as Isabella pushed it to its limits. The echoes of gunfire and the burning wreckage of Monroe's sedan faded into the distance, but the danger was far from over. Richard sat in the back, gripping the drive tightly. Monroe was gone, and now they were running with the only piece of evidence that could. James reloaded his gun. I'm guessing we don't get to take the scenic route to Berlin? Daniel, checking their GPS, scoffed. Unless you want to be ambushed at every border checkpoint, no. We need a new plan. Isabella's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We can't take a plane. Airports will be crawling with their people. Richard exhaled sharply. Then we go underground. No flights, no official records. We disappear. Daniel nodded. There's a smuggler's route through Austria. Black market transport, no questions asked. It's dangerous, but safer than walking into a trap. James smirked. Dangerous? Sounds like a perfect fit for us. Max, sitting beside Richard, let out a low growl. He was uneasy just like all of them. Richard looked at the drive in his hand. Monroe had died for this. If they failed, his sacrifice meant nothing. Then Austria it is, Richard said. But we need to move fast. Because whoever just tried to kill us, they're not done yet. The car roared down the highway, disappearing into the night. The black sedan tore through the Italian countryside, the night stretching endlessly ahead. Every mile put distance between them and the ambush, but Richard knew the real fight was only beginning. Daniel checked his phone, his fingers moving rapidly. All right, I've got a contact in Innsbruck. Guy deals in off-the-grid transportation, no passports, no questions. Destroy an entire network of power-hungry elites, James smirked. Sounds like our kind of guy. Isabella kept her eyes on the road. How do we know we can trust him? Daniel hesitated. We don't. But we don't have a better option. Richard exhaled. We'll make it work. What's the plan? Daniel tapped the GPS. We ditch the car before the Austrian border. Hike through the forest, meet my guy, and take his route into Germany. Max let out a low huff, almost as if he disapproved. James chuckled. Even Max thinks this plan is reckless. Isabella sighed. Because it is. But let's face it, we're past the point of playing it safe. Richard stared at the drive in his hand. Monroe had trusted them to finish what he started. There was no turning back. He looked up. Then let's disappear. As the car raced toward the mountains, shadows moved behind them. They weren't alone. The road twisted through the mountains, the headlights cutting through the darkness. The team was silent, each lost in thought. Every second counted. Whoever was after them wouldn't stop until they had the drive. Max suddenly let out a low growl, ears twitching. Richard stiffened. Something's wrong. Isabella glanced in the rearview mirror. Damn it. We got company. Two black SUVs appeared behind them, speeding up fast. Their pursuers had found them. James pulled out his gun. Looks like they want round two. Daniel swore. They must have planted a tracker on. Isabella gritted her teeth and slammed the accelerator. The car shot forward, the speedometer climbing. The SUVs followed, closing in. One of the vehicles pulled up beside them. A tinted window rolled down, and a gun barrel appeared. Down, Richard shouted. A burst of bullets shredded the side mirror, barely missing them. Isabella swerved, tires screeching as she avoided another hail of gunfire. Max barked furiously, bracing himself against the seat. James leaned out the window and fired back, hitting one of the SUVs in the front tire. It swerved violently before slamming into a guardrail, but the second SUV kept coming. Daniel pointed ahead.
Tunnel.
If we get inside, we might be able to shake them. Isabella didn't hesitate. She veered toward the tunnel entrance, the engine roaring. The darkness swallowed them whole. Inside the tunnel, their headlights barely illuminated the road. The second SUV followed, its own beams flashing like a predator stalking its prey. Richard gripped the drive. We need to end this now. James reloaded his weapon. I have an idea, but it's risky. Richard didn't hesitate. Do it. James grinned. Hold on tight. He reached into the back seat, grabbing a small flashbang grenade from his bag. As they neared the tunnel's exit, James rolled down the window, pulled the pin, and tossed the grenade behind them. A blinding flash filled the tunnel, followed by a deafening bang. The pursuing SUV swerved violently, its driver momentarily blinded. It slammed into the tunnel wall, flipping over in a burst of sparks. Isabella gunned the engine. The team burst out of the tunnel and into the open road. Silence. No more headlights in the mirror. No more pursuers. James let out a breath. That was close. Daniel chuckled. Too close. Richard looked at Isabella. How much farther to the drop point? She checked the GPS. 15 minutes. Richard nodded, gripping the drive. Then let's finish this. As they disappeared into the night, none of them noticed the drone hovering high above, tracking their every move. The enemy wasn't done yet. The sedan sped through the winding roads of Austria, the glow of city lights appearing in the distance. They had lost the SUVs, but Richard knew better than to believe they were safe. Daniel kept his eyes on the GPS. The drop point is just outside Innsbruck. An old warehouse by the river. My contact will be waiting. James exhaled, assuming we're not walking into another trap. Isabella tightened her grip on the wheel. We don't have a choice. We need new transport, new identities, and a way into Berlin without being traced. Max let out a low growl. He was uneasy, and that made Richard uneasy. Something's off, he muttered. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Richard turned, scanning the night sky. A faint red light flickered above them, barely noticeable. His stomach dropped. We're being tracked. James followed his gaze. A drone? Isabella cursed under her breath. That's how they found us, so fast. Daniel grabbed his laptop, typing furiously. If it's military grade, I can't jam it. But if I can access the frequency, I might be able to hijack the feed, buy us time. Max barked sharply. Richard's gut twisted. Too late. From behind them, the roar of motorcycles shattered the quiet night. 3 bikes, black and unmarked, emerged from the darkness, riders clad in helmets and body armor. And they were armed. Here we go again, James muttered, loading his gun. One of the riders pulled up beside them, a submachine gun in hand.
He aimed.
Richard barely had time to yell. Move. Isabella swerved hard, the car barely dodging the first spray of bullets. Sparks flew as rounds ricocheted off the pavement. James leaned out the window and fired, forcing the bikers to spread out. "Hang on," Isabella shouted. She yanked the wheel, sending the car off-road, down a steep embankment. The sedan bounced wildly as it tore through the rough terrain. The bikers followed. They weren't letting them go. Daniel clenched his laptop. "I've almost got the drone's feed. Just keep us alive." Richard pulled out his own gun. One clean shot could take a rider down, but hitting a moving target at this speed was nearly impossible. Max suddenly barked and lunged toward the back seat window, growling. That's when Richard saw it. One of the bikers had a grenade. Richard's world slowed. The grenade tumbled through the air, heading straight for them. They had seconds. "Jump!" Richard roared. Without hesitation, Isabella spun the wheel, sending the sedan into a violent roll. Glass shattered. Metal crunched. The grenade exploded behind them, the shockwave sending dirt and debris flying. Darkness swallowed everything. Then silence. The dust settled. The wrecked sedan lay upside down, smoke rising from the twisted frame. The road was gone. The bikers were gone. And then footsteps. Heavy boots. Approaching fast. A voice, distorted by a modulator, crackled through the night. "Find the drive.
Kill the rest."
Max whimpered. Richard, bruised and bleeding, opened his eyes. They weren't done fighting yet. Richard's body screamed in pain, but his mind snapped into survival mode. The wrecked sedan lay on its side, smoke curling from the engine. Isabella groaned nearby, trying to move. James and Daniel were stirring, bloodied but alive. Max, dazed but unharmed, nudged Richard's arm. Then the footsteps. They were closing in. Richard gritted his teeth. The enemy was here to finish the job. A metallic clink sounded, someone racking a rifle.
No time to think.
Only time to act. Richard reached for his gun, his fingers closing around the grip just as the first shadowed figure appeared through the smoke. Crack. A gunshot split the air. The enemy staggered, dropping to the ground. Before Richard could process what happened, more shots rang out from the darkness. The approaching mercenaries fell one by one, taken out with precision. Someone was helping them. A new voice called out, "Get up.
Now."
Richard turned to see a figure emerging from the trees, a woman dressed in tactical gear, a sniper rifle slung over her shoulder. Her icy blue eyes locked onto him. Daniel coughed. "Who the hell?" The woman didn't waste time. She grabbed Richard's arm, hauling him up.
Move.
More are coming. James, still stunned, blinked at her. "Who are you?" She smirked. "Eva Sinclair. You're late." Eva Sinclair. The hacker Monroe had told them to find, the one who could unlock the drive. Richard had 1,000 questions, but bullets suddenly tore into the dirt at their feet. Later. Eva snapped. "Run." Richard didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed Isabella, helped her up, and together, the team vanished into the night. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The team sprinted through the dense Austrian forest, branches whipping past as gunfire cracked behind them. Eva led the way, moving fast and sure-footed despite the uneven terrain. Richard's breath came in sharp bursts. His ribs ached from the crash, but survival pushed him forward. Max stayed close, his ears pinned back, sensing the urgency. James glanced back. "They're gaining." Eva cursed under her breath. Almost there. 100 meters ahead, a black SUV was hidden among the trees. Eva yanked open the driver's door, tossing her sniper rifle inside. "Get in." No hesitation. Richard pushed Isabella into the back seat, followed by Daniel and James. Max leaped in after them. Eva jumped behind the wheel. The instant Richard shut the door, she floored the gas. The SUV tore through the
2.
Isabella asked, still gripping her injured arm. Eva didn't look away from the road. "Secure enough. But if they tracked you this far, it won't stay that way for long." James leaned forward. "Then why take us there at all?" Eva smirked. "Because you need to see something first." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "See what?" Eva reached into her jacket and tossed a small, encrypted hard drive onto Richard's lap. "That." Richard frowned. What is this? Eva exhaled. The other half of what Monroe was working on. Silence filled the car. Daniel picked up the drive. Wait, are you saying? Eva nodded. Your drive? It's only part of the puzzle. This one completes it. Without both, you're missing the full picture. Richard's stomach twisted. Monroe never told him that. So, what's on them? James asked. Eva's expression darkened. Everything. Names, accounts, operations, enough to burn down their entire network. And enough to get us all killed. Max let out a low growl. He could sense the tension. Richard exhaled. Then we crack them. We expose everything. Eva's knuckles tightened on the wheel. That's the idea. The distant sound of engines echoed behind them. Daniel glanced at the mirror. We've got company. Eva grinned. Good. Let's give them a proper welcome. She yanked the wheel hard, sending the SUV onto a hidden side road, one leading straight to the safe house. The battle wasn't over. It was only beginning. The SUV barreled down the hidden path, dust kicking up behind them. The distant roar of pursuing engines grew louder. Richard clenched his jaw. They're not giving up. Eva smirked, eyes locked on the road. They never do. James checked his ammo. How many? Daniel glanced at the mirror. 3 vehicles. Heavy duty. Armed. Eva took a sharp turn, the SUV skidding before regaining control. We'll make it to the safe house, but they'll be right behind us. Be ready. Max growled low, his instincts screaming danger. Isabella sighed, rolling her shoulders. I was hoping for at least one peaceful night. James chuckled darkly. Wrong job for that. Up ahead, a rundown barn came into view, half hidden by dense trees. It looked abandoned, but Richard knew better. Eva hit a switch on the dashboard. The barn doors rumbled open. Hang on, she shouted. She floored the gas, and the SUV launched inside. The moment they crossed the threshold, Eva slammed the brakes.
Out. Now.
Everyone scrambled out, weapons drawn. Eva hit another switch. The barn doors slammed shut. Silence. Outside, engines rumbled closer. Richard tightened his grip on his gun. They'll breach in minutes. Eva smirked. Not if I breach them first. She pulled out a detonator. James grinned. Oh, I really like her. Eva pressed the button.
Boom.
Explosions erupted outside. The path they had taken was rigged. Flames lit the night as one of the pursuing vehicles flipped into the air. Screams and gunfire followed. Daniel checked the monitors inside the barn. 2 still up. They're regrouping. Richard exhaled. Then we hit them first. Eva grabbed her rifle. Time to clean up. As the doors began to open again, the team stepped into the fire. The real fight was about to begin.